Again, my name is Sandra Reimer, and I'm the founder of Colabor Nation. And Colabor Nation is an online community of Canadian freelance marketing and communication professionals who multiply our impact and our income by trading services, referring each other, and collaborating on client projects. We also connect members with potential clients. In our online community, we're gathering members with complementary skills, including social media content creators and strategists, writers, videographers, graphic designers, photographers, web developers and designers, and other freelancers who can easily collaborate together. We're open to freelancers at all stages of their careers. And Colabor Nation is also a source of freelance talent for businesses and nonprofits who need help with their marketing and communication. You can find us at colabornation.ca, and I will post the contact information at the end of this session. Now we're going to go into our main presentation. If you have questions during the workshop, please post them in the chat and we'll dive into them at the end of the interview with Tim. And you can also feel free to make comments in the chat as we go along. And but during that, before the Q&A, I do ask that you keep yourself muted in case there's children screaming in the background, though most of them are probably in school now, or dogs barking, etc., etc. So it's good to know that most of you don't mind networking. For some people, networking strikes fear into their hearts. The thought of making small talk with strangers sounds dreadful. I don't happen to be one of those people. I actually really enjoy networking. When I go to a party or another event with family and friends, I'll tell them, I'll see you later at home. I'm going to meet new people. So yeah, you do you right now, and I'm going to discover new people. And that's because I really see networking and building relationships as treasure hunting. I believe that each person has something unique about them, and that when I get a chance to meet new people, it's a chance to discover that uniqueness and really uncover it by listening deeply, asking good questions, and really connecting with them. As a content strategist and writer and editor over the past 17 years, I have interviewed hundreds of people, from CEOs and people with multi-millions of dollars, right on down to people who have experienced addiction and homelessness and everyone in between. And during that time, I've discovered some skills for how to turn boring conversations into something really engaging. And I would say the very first thing is to listen really deeply. And you've heard that before, I'm sure, but to actually do it takes there's just a couple things that you can do that make it effective. So nodding along, smiling, making comments when you hear something that interests you, and asking follow-up questions. That is super important for really communicating clearly that you're listening deeply. Another thing I've noticed during my interviews is that people will often test you to see if you're really listening. I'm convinced that this is subconscious, but if you watch it happen, you can know what to do. So for example, somebody will make a very emotionally charged statement and they'll just leave it at that. And if you don't follow up, you never find out the mystery that they've alluded to. But if you ask a good follow-up question, it unlocks this treasure chest of relational gold. So I'll give you an example. So someone in a networking session might say, wow, when I started my business, I learned a lot of things the hard way. That is an emotionally charged statement waiting for a great follow-up question. So you could ask something like, oh, sounds like you have some hard-won wisdom. Could you share some of the lessons you learned? Or, even a question when you hear something that interests you, you can stop the regular flow of conversation and say, oh, can you tell me more about that? Or how did you feel about that? And all of a sudden, people will just feel safe. You created the safety that says, I'm really listening to you and I want to hear what you say. And as you create that safe spot, they'll just open up like crazy. And it's wonderful because who doesn't like to hear somebody talking about things that are important to them and that they're passionate about, instead of rehearsed, dry, small talk, right? It takes it quickly beyond that. Listening with genuine interest is important for personal or business relationships. Another important skill specific to building business relationships is to look for points of connection between what you have to offer and what the other person needs. This really flips the way the relational, what you're doing together. It's not about you thinking, okay, when do I get to talk about my services? And just tell this person how great what I have is to offer. When you're listening for what that person needs, you're making an approach that is about serving them, not selling to them. And that immediately lowers people's guards. One of the reasons that networking events are uncomfortable is that nobody likes to be sold to. That's uncomfortable and icky and gross. And so if you're thinking about what does this person genuinely need, and then you are a person who could help them, say, oh, well, that's something I do. I can make your life easier by X, Y, Z. Now, when you're in a networking event like this, you're often not going to be talking to people who are potential clients. Sometimes you will, and then you can talk about your products and make that direct connection between what they need and what you have to offer. But other times you're going to be talking to a person who maybe a connector, like I mentioned before, someone who can connect you to your potential clients, or they could be somebody you could work with in a complementary way, or they might just be a colleague, a fellow business person who you can recommend a resource to and just help out that way. So I encourage you to think about networking more broadly and think about investing in that other person you're talking to, with a range of possibilities of the way you can invest in their success. And the reason for doing that is A, just to be a decent human being, B, because when you're remembered as a knowledgeable, helpful professional, you're the person who's going to come to mind when they do run across as like, oh, I know who could help you. Let me just look through my LinkedIn contacts. I remember meeting that person at an event. I'm going to connect you. And Tim knows all about the power of that. So I'm sure he's going to tell us lots more about that. Okay, almost ready to introduce Tim here. Has anybody heard of author and professor Adam Grant? You guys heard him? Yeah? Okay. Well, Adam Grant wrote a whole book about giving generously as a counterintuitive strategy to succeed in business. It's called Give and Take. And on his website, Dr. Grant says, for generations, we've focused on the individual drivers of success: passion, hard work, talent, and luck. But today, success is increasingly dependent on how we interact with others. It turns out that at work, most people operate either as takers, matchers, or givers. That's takers, matchers, or givers. Whereas takers strive to get as much as possible from others, and matchers aim to trade evenly, givers are the rare breed of people who contribute to others without expecting anything in return. So today, as we network, let's be generous givers who invest in the success of the people around us, whether they're potential clients, collaborators, colleagues, or connectors. Now let me introduce Tim Underwood. After a long career in marketing in the publishing industry, Tim Underwood began consulting as a marketing and social media strategist through his business, Problem Solved Marketing. With a strong professional network and a stellar reputation, Tim has no trouble attracting clients. In fact, Tim has a whopping 10,168 followers on LinkedIn. I checked just this morning, and 997 contacts. And as I mentioned, as people were just joining, he and I have 249 contacts in common, which is a lot. So, Tim, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Well, good to be here. How's everyone doing? Cooler weather. September's here. My favorite month because I was born in September. Anybody else born in September? Colleen? No, Todd is.
Well, that's great.
Excellent.
So, Tim, why don't you
Yep.
start off by telling us what you do and why you do it?
Yeah, so I do marketing of all types. I focus on digital marketing. Businesses are always facing challenges, and many of those business challenges are marketing problems. And I'm one of those odd people, maybe, that I love solving problems. And I like noodling out a problem and finding a solution and the reward that comes with that. And as it turns out, I guess I'm good at it. Among colleagues over the years, I've always been the one in the office to solve an issue that others have tried to solve. I think it's a combination of patience, resourcefulness, maybe grit, definitely experience, but I kind of work at it. So that's kind of some of the things I do. Problem solved marketing, right?
That's awesome. And what role has building relationships played in your career to this point?
Well, I started to build relationships to a great extent in the early 90s when I was doing personal support raising. At the time, I was fortunate through my job at Vision 2000 Canada, which was a task force of the EFC, to be in regular contact with denominational and parachurch leaders, pastors, and people of influence. And I value friendship. Early in life, I had for example, I had no family, and I became a Christian. I found a new family, and friendships became of high value to me. And so I stayed in touch with university friends and friends from across Canada for many years. And I found kind of you might say, a new circle of friends in Christian publishing and retailing. And then working with resource marketing more recently, a lot of those friendships were refreshed with those denominational parachurch and pastors. And so part of what I was doing was outreach of resources to those people.
That's great. And can you tell us some specific things you do to build business relationships? Like you said, you refresh some of those relationships. How do you do that?
Well, these days with the internet and with COVID, things are a little bit different than used to be. Meeting people face to face, a warm handshake, learning the skills of small talk, like you said, but then moving it into showing interest in the person. For me, LinkedIn is like the old-fashioned in-person networking meeting at a cocktail party idea. So it's an opportunity to meet people I haven't met face to face. I know there's various views on how to use LinkedIn. For me, it's always been an opportunity to get to know people that I may not have met before. So I use it as a tool to connect with friends, acquaintances, and business connections. One of the first things I do, and I've done for clients, is to upload your contact list, your existing contact list or database to LinkedIn, those people who you already know, and find out and make the connection with them and sync your data. And in a sense, you sync it with LinkedIn, and you can download it from LinkedIn into your database, and then you have the two in one. And so I find affinities, build relationships from the people I already know. So people who are friends of friends, I look at them, and if they know of me and I know of them, then I figure it's good. There's a good opportunity there to reach out to them and say something along the lines of, we have, I notice we have 12 contacts in common. I notice we are both in publishing, and I attended your maybe they didn't know me, but I attended your seminar, and you give 2 or 3 reasons why it makes sense. And it says it makes sense for us to probably be in touch with one another, and then use that as part of the introduction. And so what I also like to do is to show value in my news feed of posts that I've done. So I post on a few different topics. And so essentially, I think it's important to show that the person connecting with me, if they haven't met me in person, can see why there might be some good value in doing so.
That's good. I like what you said about being really specific about the points of connection and why it makes sense for the person. So it's not just a generic reach out. It's taken some thought, even just a few minutes, to what are the points of commonality.
Yeah, I always write a kind of an introduction as part of it to say, I either know of you, or we were in a group together, or we have 30, if it's like 30 or 40 people in common, it's like, this makes good sense for us to be in contact with one another.
Right.
We're in the same industry, that type of thing.
Okay, that's great.
I've never had anyone say no.
Right.
There's people who haven't replied back, but I've never had any negative comments on that. So.
And do you also do like virtual Zoom coffees with people, like do a Zoom meeting with people and stuff like that? Or is it mostly just messaging back and forth on LinkedIn?
It's mostly, for me, it's been mostly messaging back and forth. I mean, there were days where I was a little more active than I am now. So I'm sort of semi-retired. So I can say that my activity level hasn't been as high as it used to be. But yeah, there's definitely, I think if you show interest in the person, and if at every turn you thank them, and in some cases, even if they do something really nice for you, like write a review or something, I'm just saying this about maybe clients or others, to even go so far as to send them a gift or a gift card or something like that, in relation to how large their effort was, essentially, and thanking them in like manner. I think that goes a long way to just maintaining relationships, keeping them strong.
That's great. Yeah, and that leads into my next question about maintaining the relationships. So you mentioned that you send a gift occasionally. What are other ways where you'll just remind people that you're here and connecting?
I think you want to show that you care about them personally, like you were saying earlier. People are valuable, and you want to invest in people. Um, one of the ways I do that is showing people our valuables. I always like or congratulate when people get a promotion.
Oh,
I try to be pretty active on LinkedIn that way, to scroll through my news feed on a regular basis. People I know who have birthdays they get a notification comes up. So just to kind of congratulate, give warm gestures to anything, if it's a nice article, to like it, make a comment on it perhaps, but show that you're engaged, and just show that you really appreciate the content they're sharing.
that's great.
So for me, I also maintain the relationships, I guess, in a sense, by curating useful content, like I mentioned before. I focus on 3 or 4 kind of areas of interest, and I read articles quite regularly. I'm a researcher, as I mentioned before, and I love to curate. So I read something that's interesting, I will share it and post it. So it's usually on topics of publishing, social media, technology in general, and marketing. And so I'm always sharing some interesting things, at least I find interesting. Hopefully people will as well. So yeah, I think to be grateful, never abuse on a relationship, never take it for granted. And if you're doing an ask of somebody, to basically present some kind of to give them some kind of a thank you or a gift, or that. I've heard of certain situations, and I've done this in the past too, but not for a while, where if you ask for a rating or review, you can even give a thank you, mail a card, You can give awards for people, the most interesting review kind of reward. There's certain ways you can do that. I'm not into gimmicks in that. I'm looking for me, it's thoughtful and authentic type of thank yous.
I like that, thoughtful and authentic. That's good. Good. And how do you know if a relationship is worth investing in? Like, do you have like a criteria in your mind? It's like, because we all have limited time, right?
Yeah, and you get good at it after a while, but initially it's a challenge, right? You look at the person, either that one who's asked to be a connection with you, for example. I'm using LinkedIn as the examples here because that tends to be these days the big ways. I look at what role they're in, obviously there's how many connections and followers. That feels, saying it that way, it feels very much like a utilitarian relationship, but it's a grid you have to put certain things through, and there's always exceptions to be made. But you take a glance at who it is. One of the things I do watch for, though, yellow and red flags are if they're in affiliations or associations I'm not too crazy about, and that's your personal preference. If they're in multi-level marketing or some other thing, for me, that's a caution. It may not be for you, but you may find those different ways to monitor those. And if they ask for hard asks right away, that's kind of, for me, a little off-putting. Like, I'm not that forward now, and others maybe, but one of the things you can do, obviously, is either tune it out or disconnect your connection with that person, quietly after a while. And for me, sometimes I focus on certain regions. Sometimes I'm only focusing on Canada, for example, making connections in Canada. I have had a lot, and this is again a personal thing, but I have had a lot of requests to connect from a lot of different countries. And for me, I just don't, one of the things is you look through the profile and see what they've been up to. So that's one of the ways I decided. And I think after a little while of doing that, it becomes a little bit easier to get a good gut sense of what people are up to and what maybe their intention is too.
Right.
In my introduction, I always say I have no, what's the word for it?
Ulterior motive.
Well, I was going to say that, but there's a better way to say that. But anyway, yeah, I have no hidden agenda.
Hidden agenda. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just building relationships.
So we have some questions coming in, and I want to work with those here. Let me see. Okay. What does an off-putting hard ask look like?
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, for me, this is the question. Each person has their own feel for this, but it's like, it's kind of a, can you help me do this? And it's very pointed. It's oftentimes, will you like my page? I didn't, so it's a level of comfort with what they're asking me to do.
Mhm.
They're asking me to promote their book or something along those lines. And it can, sometimes it's the tone in which it's said too. It's not as much a gracious tone. So it's a lot of different things that can play into that for me.
To me, it sounds like someone who is making an ask that isn't respectful and doesn't meet your need, and it's not a win. It's just about them and what they need.
Yeah, it's there, and again, it depends on the person. So this is the thing, for each of us, it's different, right? I think we've all had some level of off-putting asks that we've had to deal with. So you may be in a season of life where you're just not ready to engaging to a great extent with someone like that they're asking. So
yeah. Carl says for him, a hard ask is, I want you to send overflow work to me, or I want to fix your website. It's just super direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's if you feel like a person and this is fine, that because networking and connecting has a lot of different levels of depth to it. And perhaps a person may not be too interested in having getting to know you, but they just want your help. So, and that's fair for them to want to do that. I mean, that just, and it's fair for me to not to want to respond properly or in like manner. So
yeah, Colleen says mutual benefit is important.
I think so. Yeah.
I agree. Anybody have any other questions or comments that you want to make or say about what Tim said? You can unmute yourself if you'd like and make a comment.
Tim, I was interested, we had a conversation one time where you were talking about how you don't have a website, ironically.
Yeah.
and
I know.
you're focusing most of your effort on LinkedIn for the networking, which makes sense to me. I'm wondering about your experience of and participation in other platforms like Co-Labor Nation, for example.
Yeah, I mean, okay. That's funny. You bring up the website question. I am in this situation in life. Okay, so part of what I do, I make websites for a living. So the fact I don't have my own website is like the shoemakers. Isn't that this? What is that story about? But anyway, on the one hand, it's that. On the other hand, it's like I'm, I'm semi-retired. I get 3 or 4 new contacts from LinkedIn a month. Do I need to build a website when I'm actually turning work away right now? So it's a question for me. It's always been a question for what am I going to focus on? I'm flying a little bit under the radar, and it's working for me. It's not less necessarily to say it's the advice I'd give anybody else, but I think the advice you want to give someone has to fit their life and where they're at. And so that's the advice I think I'm giving myself. Other platforms, I have not needed to. I have not ventured there, but I know. This is my first opportunity to be on Co-Labor Nation like this, so it's good to meet everyone.
And Janet is asking, so I think you've answered Janet's question about choosing a networking group or a LinkedIn group to participate in. I know for me, choosing to be involved in a group, I really like it if the focus is not networking. And I'll tell you why. It's because to me that introduces a layer of awkwardness.
Yeah.
And I prefer to gather around common interests with my target market so that we can hang out and talk about our mutual passion. And it comes up as a side conversation. Oh, by the way, I do this and I can help you with that. To me, that's much more comfortable and it's been much more successful.
Yeah, I think so too. There are plenty of LinkedIn groups, and I'm part of a bunch of them. I feel like LinkedIn groups were more active and more beneficial to me, maybe 5 or 6 years ago or 10 years ago than they are now. But I think if you find the right one, maybe I haven't found the right one. I mean, I'm part of 30. But anyway, I think that's the max you can be a part of, and affinity groups. But I do see that if there's a group that's missing that you want to be a part of on LinkedIn that's not there, for you to start up a group. And I think if you have the right first few people in there who are involved, active, and talking about the topic, like you say, I think that can go a long way. So
that's great. If anybody else has any questions, go ahead and ask them, or Tim, if you have any other comments. Otherwise, we'll go into our first breakout room and we'll try some of these things out and just meet each other. Collaborators, people you could potentially work with, connectors, people who can share your same target market, but approach someone from a different angle and can connect you with your ideal clients. And yeah, those are the kind of people you can meet in Co-Labor Nation. And we have a free network where you can join and you're just continuing the networking, getting to know people. I post content in Co-Labor Nation. You can learn all kinds of things specifically about freelancing and freelance collaboration. And then you can also join our subscriber community, and that's where we roll up our sleeves and just really collaborate more intentionally and more deeply. And we do some collaborative promotion efforts. For example, we're going to be going to an innovation expo together and working the crowd, having a booth and attracting clients that we all need and can work together to meet. And here is how to join the Co-Labor Nation free network. Or if you just want to check out our website and see what we're all about, there is the website. You'll also be receiving a follow-up email with these links so you can connect. So thank you again for attending today and coming to this event, learning more about networking, sharing your knowledge. And Tim, thank you so much for sharing your secrets with us, your tips, and yeah, helping us to really value relationships like you were talking about. I just want to read one more quote from Dr. Adam Grant from his book, Give and Take, as we close up here. He says, being a giver is not good for a 100-yard dash, but it's valuable in a marathon. So I hope you're all building the kind of lives and businesses where you're those marathon relationship builders who are generous and giving and investing in the lives of others. Thanks again. We'll see you hopefully in Co-Labor Nation. Bye now.